Hello, fellow Earthlings. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we will be exploring the concept, to thine own self be true. Now, this is obviously a huge concept that could not possibly be addressed in its entirety in a single short YouTube video. This topic will be carried throughout this channel, so think of this as an introduction to my perspective on this topic, okay? I often refer to myself as a think for yourself advocate, meaning that I really encourage the individual person to come up with their own thoughts, beliefs, and ideals. I try to support others in that. In a world that is trying to change you or mold you into someone else's agenda, and for you to stand firmly looking back saying, this is who I am and this is what I believe, takes tenacity. Spiritual masters since the dawn of time have stressed the importance of asking the question, who am I? I personally think that this is one of the most important questions one can ask for many reasons. No matter where you are in the world, we are programmed in many ways from an early age, right? It's how we're built as earthlings. We know that young children are extremely impressionable. Have you ever heard the quote, give me a child until he is 7 and I will show you the man? We know today that a child's brain before the age of 9, around 9, has a lot going on, right? The brain develops very rapidly during the first several years of life. I believe Harvard even released some data stating that prior to a child turning 3, they're already forming 1 million neural connections every minute. These connections are links and they become the brain's mapping system. You might have heard the term that neurons that fire together wire together. Think about how much information a newborn earthling needs to learn to be able to function in our world. They need to know how to walk, talk, hold a fork. They need to understand all sorts of things like hot things can burn you. They need to learn the rules of their family systems, what their cultures deem acceptable and unacceptable, and so on. We enter into Earth School on day 1 of our existence. Those who raise us cannot ask us as a newborn how we feel or what we think about something. Those who raise us do the best they can, usually passing along their own, conditionings and beliefs to their children. And we watch and listen, but it's other stuff too, right? We watch and listen to media from a young age that influences us, thus mapping our brains. We have family, teachers, religions, and our culture that help us wire these massive amounts of neural connections at this really impressionable age. Whether the intentions of our caregivers, religious institutions, teachers, cultures, media are good, bad, right, wrong, indifferent is irrelevant. The point is that we needed some sort of programming in order to move on and operate in the coming years. But it is up to us that when we get older, we start walking the path back to ourselves if we so choose. We are given a choice here. Self-inquiry isn't for everyone, nor is it easy. So let me ask you a question. Do you believe what you believe because you actually believe it, or did someone else or something else foster this belief and you simply adopted it as your own through strong neural connections from a young age? Tough to tell, huh? So in order to practice to thine own self be true, one would have to know thyself. How well can we honestly know ourselves when we have already had many years of social and cultural programming from various avenues? To put in the work, to figure out what we believe and how we want to live, our passions, our relationship ideals, not what our parents or teachers or media or even our religious institutions or affiliations taught us, but truly our own beliefs. To stand there and say that I have done the work to tap into my inner essence, and this is where I stand, that takes effort and courage. Not everyone is going to be up for this, and that's totally okay. Think about how violating it can be when someone says that what you believe is wrong, or when they pressure you into believing, their way. We see this a lot with politics, religion, or family systems, but also many other areas of our lives, right? It's kind of quite common. It can also feel very threatening to the individual to question certain beliefs, especially when the beliefs run deep. Let's take a super controversial example because I love controversy. Questioning the beliefs you have in the religion you were raised in, right? That can feel super threatening to some individuals. We are largely discouraged from doing that. But one of the biggest misconceptions about God or higher power or source, and remember, don't get hung up on my choice of word here, substitute with your own if needed. One of the biggest misconceptions about God does not come from God itself, but rather from someone adopting another's conception of God as their own. Questioning a belief does not mean that you will no longer believe it, although, that is a possibility. Questioning can lead us to kind of the conclusion that we do not, in fact, believe what we thought we believed. But it can also very much strengthen the current belief we hold when we question it and come back and say, yeah, this is what I believe, yes. One will believe even stronger if you go through that process. Let's flip it and say, you already question a belief. You were raised in a faith that you went running from and you swung the other way, right? But you still didn't figure out what you believed. You just figured out what you didn't believe. When I was in early recovery, I remember picking apart so many of the suggestions that was being given to me, right? I had that I don't believe that attitude that really almost killed me. Someone finally said to me, I hear so much from you about what you don't believe. Why don't you tell me what you do believe? Right? It was much easier for me to throw stones and pick apart others people's directions, philosophies, beliefs than it was for me to tell you what I believed. A problem with many earthlings is that they don't always know what they like or don't like. I know this was the case for me at one time and something I still work on today. I try to be true to myself, but would realize how much I would abandon myself for an unseen alternative motive, such as people pleasing, or worse, there were times where I thought I was being authentic. I thought I was speaking my truth or engaging in what I wanted or needed, only to figure out after I agreed to it that I wasn't being true to myself at all. Sometimes it was due to pressure I felt from others, or wanting to fit in, or not wanting to be left out, or not wanting to disappoint, or wanting to be loved or accepted or seen as easygoing. You will know when you've missed the mark with yourself. There will be signs, and it's a good thing. And these signs will be valuable learning opportunities. I'll give you a personal example. I used to have a lot of what I'd call meltdowns. Early sobriety's rough. Then I would beat myself up after these meltdowns because I should know how to act better. But these meltdowns were giving me important information. For example, I used to manage a very large department in a certain industry that is very social. My husband has largely worked from home the past several years. I would work in an office outside of my home around people all day, and then I would sit in traffic while I commuted home just to walk into the door and be hit with a bunch of questions and stimulation from my husband, as he hadn't had much in terms of personal interaction with others throughout the day. I understand that. I would be hit with questions like, how was your day? What's for dinner? And so on, right? Being greeted like this made me, I was like, why do I want to cry and run away? And then I would hate myself, because the story I would tell myself was that I needed to be grateful that I had a husband that was so happy to see me and wanted to talk to me the second I walked in the door, right? That story was filled with guilt and shame and kept me stuck, denying my capacity for a while. I wasn't honoring myself and my constitution. With self-inquiry, I discovered many things. One, I'm very sensory sensitive and I can get overstimulated easily. Working and interacting with others all day, then to be hit with more stimulation right when I walked in the door felt really threatening. I could shame myself about that or accept it, that this is how I'm built, and express my needs to my husband in a loving manner. So we came up with a new plan. When I would get home, my family gave me 30 minutes to decompress before heavily engaging with me. I was able to go up to my room, change, get out of my work clothes, and do whatever I needed to do for me to kind of recalibrate myself for the day, so I could be a more loving and present person for my family for the rest of the evening. At first, I needed the full 30 minutes. Then it turned into me just needing, 10 to 15 minutes alone before I was ready most of the time. That feeling of wanting to cry and run away dissipated when I figured out my needs and I expressed them lovingly. When I am disturbed by some person, place, thing, or situation, it also means that there is something going on with me. There is important information within disturbances. If you make the disturbances entirely about others rather than yourself, then we miss the lesson. I started doing exercises, almost treating myself like a scientific experiment from like a detached state. To do this from a detached state is helpful, as you won't get caught up, in the guilt and shame as much. It's more of like how interesting. I reacted that way. Or like, oh, that bothered me. Like, I wonder why. Get curious about yourself. Curiosity plays a huge role within self-inquiry. A good exercise that worked for me for better understanding myself was the I like that, I don't like that exercise. You can do this game by yourself or with others. I personally did this exercise with my husband, but there was plenty of times I expressed this exercise on my own. This is where you verbally go through life expressing without any further explanation what you like and do not like. It is important that you do not attach a story to it. A story would look like, I don't like that because insert story. For this exercise, the phrase, I like that and I don't like that should not have any words that follow. So for instance, one time my husband came and hugged me. We had a walk-in pantry and I don't like being trapped in like spaces like that. So I said, I don't like that. But then another time he came and cleared my dinner plate, from me. And I'm like, I like that, right? No story. Using our minds to query ourselves does not come naturally to many people, right? This makes sense that it would not come natural going back to when we were born. When we were first born, we learned about the world through mirrored neurons in the brain. We learned to self-reflect by identifying with the reflection that we received from the physical world. We received our identification by the reactions of others depending on what we did. This is how we process external images internally within our mind. In other words, we are attached and identify with our reflection. This is not an on and off switch type of practice. Self-inquiry takes time and patience. It's a journey rather than a destination, a forever unfolding process. As we practice levels of self-inquiry, we become more expansive in supporting others in their unique paths and way of thinking. Our hearts soften as we start to know that we want the freedom to express our own unique essence, and what a challenge it was for us to uncover this unique essence, and how painful it is to not walk within our own truth, that we stop wanting to do that to others. Other people's beliefs also become less threatening when we are strong in our own core beliefs. In other words, I was much more threatened by others' conflicting beliefs when I did not have a strong sense of who I was or what I believed. If we can all support one another and our unique perspectives without allowing them to become a threat to our own beliefs, then we are encouraging others to bring their unique essence forward to the world. Think about how much this would change the world, right? If this channel resonates, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so we can engage together. Until next time, to thine own self be true.